Grant, he used to say.
Thank you very much.
We got to catch up with each other, and I was up. The only trouble is you kept me up late. I was going over your site, which is so rich, I could hardly believe it, and welcome. It's really a pleasure.
You.
And welcome to you in the audience. The guest is Ilan Ziv. He's a filmmaker, I would add, extraordinaire. And he kept me up late watching his site, which is so very rich, I could hardly get past it all. And he's a filmmaker. We're going to be talking about filmmaking and other matters. And Ilan, welcome. Really, very much to conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Share with us a little. It's my template thing I do. Where you were born and raised, education, a little bit. And then we'll get into your filmmaking career. We have a couple little trailer clips and that sort of thing. But share your own background, please.
Well, I was born in Israel. I left Israel in 1973. Okay. After the October War, it's about 35 years ago.
Yeah.
I came to New York and I finished school in NYU, film school. And basically, I mean, if you want my entire biography.
Well, a little bit, yeah.
Well, the problem was after finishing film school in the 70s, there was there was very little opportunities, if you like.
Okay.
You had primarily 3 networks. Maybe 3 commercial and PBS. Yeah. And to get a job, the only real industry was industrials. That we used to call them.
Yeah.
So, and I was much older than the rest of the student.
Okay.
Because in Israel I served in the army, then I started school, then I was in the war. So I was 20, almost 26 when I finished undergraduate.
That's still
so about 5.
It was a film school on top of that, or you took your undergraduate degree in filmmaking? Or,
exactly.
Well, you can do that. I wasn't sure if there was a graduate.
I started in Israel, and then I studied theater in Israel, and finished in
Where in
film.
Israel? Not at the Technion?
Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv. Okay. Okay.
And so I was much older than the rest of your normal American.
26 doesn't seem old to me
at all. No, but for an undergraduate.
I see. Oh, I see. Right. Usually it's 22 or
so.
Yeah.
Basically, I didn't want to join the industry, if you like. And so the first thing, but the biggest problem was how to get into.
Yeah, sure. It's always hard. Yeah.
So the first thing I did was, I did it with another woman who is now a professor at NYU, Middle East Film Festival, which was the first one in the United States. It's brought a lot of Arabs, Palestinian films, Israeli films. It was kind of big success.
Still ongoing?
No, it was, but it was the first.
Yeah, right.
It was picked up in other cities afterward.
Yeah.
And after that, still without a particular way of getting into the industry, I met a guy who the audience might not know, but he's an icon for me. He's an American independent filmmaker called Lionel Rogozin, who made film that unfortunately been forgotten, Come Back Africa, the first film about apartheid. He made On the Bowery, which was which was about sort of drama with bums on the Bowery. American ambassador left in protest when it was in the Venice Film Festival in 1956.
Good stuff.
Because in the 50s you're not supposed to talk about, to show those sides of America. So he had a defunct distribution company called Impact Film. And he said if I could take it over and bring some of the film from the film festival and a bit revive it.
Don't you have a thing called Icarus?
Icarus Film.
Yeah, okay.
So I started Icarus Film, which is now a very successful company.
Congratulations. That's for distribution.
Yes.
And you list all these filmmakers in there, and it's really a treasure trove.
But Icarus is not mine. I sold it.
Okay.
A year later, I bought a camera, and since then I've been making film.
Yeah.
So that's the trajectory into filmmaking.
So you got making film footage acquisition and so forth about what years?
That was 78 until 79. End of 79.
That's when you got your camera.
I bought my camera.
What was the first camera you got?
KY 2000.
Okay, I don't know. Is that Sony?
It was JVC, the first 3 tube in a lower price, around $10,000.
3 chip. Yeah.
That was no chips, tubes.
Okay.
Those are cubes.
Yeah, right.
Way before chips. And it was the first broadcast quality camera under 40, because the network were using 40, 50,000.
Did you happen to know Mike Schamberg by any chance? Or the Rain Dance people, Paul Ryan and that? Mike Schamberg one time did a thing, they were talking about broadcast quality. I don't know exactly what that stands, but he deliberately did a thing with half-inch Portapac stuff and put it on the satellite with Guru Maharaj or something to prove that it could be done. Broadcast standards is a thing that is significant still. in terms of what the technical standards
No,
are
I think,
or is that just a term that was used by people who were
I
well
think
ensconced?
in those days,
yeah,
there was a huge gap.
Yeah.
I think today it's much more elastic, and most of the digital cameras will be put, also because the popularization of chip and 1 chip and 3 chip,
yeah.
and now HD and HDV,
yeah.
almost everything will be broadcast.
Isn't it amazing? They got
but
a little thing in the palm of their hand. They
but
go
the
out
problem
and
is
get
that
great
in those days, it was still accepted documentaries were in film, not on tape.
How about on the side of the content, or the political slant, or the slant of the content of the programs that you're doing? You seem to be, if I may, I suggest you set me straight, on the progressive side.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And then you studied with George Stoney,
right?
Another icon in the history of communications. Yeah, congratulations on all that. But you were progressive in your political view.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the program has a political, not in a sense of agitprop, but in a sense of exploring political issues.
Yeah.
More in the past, more contemporary issues. Now I'm trying to do more sort of history. I mean, that's not true. I mean, diverse.
Yeah, it's mixed up.
It's still diverse.
There's a lot of things. You've done a lot of things on the Middle East.
Yeah.
That 6-day, what is it called again?
The last one was 6 days in June.
That's a major film.
Right.
They're comparing it to the Battle of Algiers, some of the critics.
So
that's a major thing, yeah.
So and the next one will be on the 1973 war. So.
Okay.
But I mean, the issue of the 67, if you want to jump into it.
Yeah.
I was accused by some and congratulated by showing a revisionist view of the war, and I think the interest in the film is that he tried to look at the war from a new perspective. The 1967 war from a new perspective. Revisionist. I'm saying positively, not in trying to create a different view of the war or to show you different information.
What do you think the established canon's view of the war was, and what made yours different than that, if I may?
I mean, I grew up in Israel.
Yeah.
You grew up in the U.S.
Yeah.
With kind of a very one-sided vision of the war.
Yeah.
Which means the Arab world threatened Israel. Israel is facing existential threat.
Yes.
Israel, the little David, goes out
to
defeat the Goliath.
Yeah.
He defeats it in 6 amazing days. The best army in the world. Some say a miracle. And that's the view.
It's a sum of, yes, I understand, yeah.
So the revisionist view will get into much more nuanced understanding of that war.
And along what lines?
It explored the fact that actually the Egyptian army was very rich in hardware, but very sloppy and ill-equipped.
Particularly air power, I think.
Ill-equipped in terms of tactics, commanding, etc. So, and that is not discovered by me. It was revealed by head of the UN force at the time, the CIA station chief in Tel Aviv, all those people.
Could we do a sidebar for a second? Is that issue one, let's go back to 48, and the idea that the Israelis were, again, the David against the great Goliath? Is that correct, do you think? Or is there a reason to sort of revisit the situation in 1948 when the state was declared and all of that?
Some will say that 48 also was not a pure David. 48 has two elements to it. One element is the Israeli-Palestinian war, which was basically, for lack of better terms, was an ethnic cleansing of sort.
That's a heavy word.
A heavy word, but that's accepted now by a lot of people, which means a mixed campaign of expulsion and exodus by Palestinians. Some of it intentionally expelled, some of it fleeing.
But I meant the balance of the balance of military power.
No, wait. So I'm intentionally from the UN declaration, which is November 27, 47, until the war broke with the Arab states in May 48. You got those, whatever it is, 6 or 7 months, which basically de facto finished with the Palestinian issue, which means most of the Palestinian territories has been cleaned either through occupation, which means Israel won all the roads connecting it all the disparate Jewish settlement. Then came the invasion of the Arab armies. Now, the invasion of the Arab armies, I disagree. I think it was a David against Goliath. The Jewish settlement at the time was about 600,000 people.
Right.
The Arab armies were ill-equipped or, with a lot of bravados, but unprepared. But still, they numbered in I think hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
So numerically, you had an overwhelming Arab force.
Okay.
You had a well-trained, but still a very tiny Israeli force. So Israel defeated the Palestinians, if you like.
So that was David Goliath.
That was a more, so that's what I'm saying, it's a mix.
Yeah, okay,
for you, it's a
of
mixed
course.
bag.
Everything always is, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
so the Palestinians were no match to the Israelis. And
in 48?
The Palestinian, not the Arabs.
Oh, okay, I see.
The
Okay,
Palestinian
good.
population,
Thank you, yeah.
The Palestinian population were no match. It was villagers, very feudal society.
Stern gang.
And Israel had a lot of organization.
Yeah.
And well-trained, westernized army, or westernized army in its inception. That was not a David against Goliath. The David against Goliath is the 48 with the Arab army.
Okay, good. Yeah, I know.
Or David, some aspect of David, even that. Some people will argue with me. But numerically, the Arabs were overwhelming. Israel was very small.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking for an hour here, and we've got to show you your film. We've got a clip. We've got a lot to do. But one of the things we want to get to maybe toward the end is how do you think this is going to air on the 11th of February. The election is going to take place on the 10th. We'd like to get your feel on how that's likely to come out. Are you good at presciently being able to predict the future a week out?
I will predict the future by telling you that the election don't count.
Okay, that's a whole other ball of wax, as they say.
Which means I don't think, I think for the perception, media perception, there will be a lot of talk about Netanyahu, the right-winger, winning over Kadima, Tzipi Livni, who is more moderate.
They also have this nationalist party, which I understand is to the right of Likud.
Right, very right of Likud. But I would argue that none of that matters.
Oh, really?
And I'm not saying it because I'd like to sound cute.
Yeah, no.
I'm saying it because I think the Israeli political scene is frozen as far as the Middle East and Palestine-Israeli conflict. And I think there's no force in Israel. I will always make a joke with Arab friends and saying, if you'll be the Prime Minister of Israel, you won't be able to do much either. Which means I think a society is, if it's not a dictatorship, it's run by some kind of a consensus, and Israel is not paralyzed. The consensus in Israel is sort of paralyzed because there's no group that can really create a change in the status quo. I think the Palestinians are too, and I think you have a frozen situation in which Israel can continue to talk about peace, but it cannot really do anything.
Oh, dear.
It cannot move any settlement. It doesn't have the political power, and I don't care if I will be the prime minister or anybody will. So, if Netanyahu versus Tzipi, the nuances are so minute that will not really make it.
That's very dangerous. Perhaps the most dangerous part of the world, I think, maybe.
I think so. It got more dangerous now.
Danger to the whole world society.
And I think it got more dangerous with Iran and with the pursuit of nuclear power, with the threat of confronting Iran nuclear ambition. So the whole thing has got much more dangerous.
So we got the election return announced. It doesn't matter.
That's my take on it. My take on it, a lot of people would agree that it's really, in the big picture, it doesn't matter. There's going to be a lot of talk in the media the morning after.
Of course, that's the morning this is going to air.
Who won and who lost? I will argue that it's not really matter.
Okay, that's
between the Barak, Tzipi Livni, or Netanyahu, the three big ones, are practically indifferent. The changes are very minute.
Something new is needed. Your films might help toward
bring
that about, maybe.
We're a bit jaded on that too.
Oh, yeah,
so,
you've been at it for a long time. Yeah.
So I think that I think we're in a historic moment of paralysis, which will last for many years.
Let me ask the sidebar to the sidebar. Do you think the election of Obama made a difference?
No, everybody in Israel is dreaming about Obama.
Yeah, I think the whole world is.
Right. I will talk to you about Obama only in terms of the Middle East.
Okay.
I think Obama could make a change.
A big change.
He could make a change in Iran. He could make a change possibly with Syria. He might even succeed to push Israel in Syria towards resolution of a peace treaty.
That seems to be emerging. That's emerging.
I'm not trying to undermine it, but the problem is that the engine of destruction, which is the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, Obama will not make a dent. And I feel that reading Thomas Friedman yesterday in the New York Times. I mean, as he says, all of the State Department could not resolve it today, let alone
all the king's horses and all the king's
I
men.
think that Mr. Mitchell will come back with a wonderful report.
Yeah, talking Ireland. Yeah.
And he will be. I think we're very much frozen. I think America, because of its political structure internally, cannot push Israel to, cannot push the Palestinian. I think Israel and the Palestinians are stuck and interlocked with each other.
Again, come back. There's Kashmir and other places, Pakistan, Afghanistan, but Israel and the Palestinian question seems to be the major conundrum facing the human society, it would seem to me. In terms of the danger to world society.
Yeah. There's an Israeli novelist, kind of even famous in the United States, called David Grossman.
Okay.
And after the Gaza war campaign,
just recent.
Yeah. He wrote a beautiful. His son was killed in the 2006 war in Lebanon.
Okay.
And he became a national figure after the son's death and the speech he made publicly in a demonstration. And he wrote a very beautiful, very succinct article in Israeli leading liberal paper, Haaretz, which is like so the Israeli version of New York
Times.
That's like
the Times of Israel?
Yeah, it's a very good paper. He wrote that in the Bible, Samson, when he attacked Gaza, one of the tactics he used, he tied two foxes with their tails and put a torch, and the foxes being burned by the torch run in the field of wheat and burning the field of wheat of Gaza in its war against the Philistines. And he claimed that the Israelis and the Palestinians are those two foxes locked with a tied tail and tails on fire, burning themselves and the region.
It's very discouraging.
I think it's a very powerful metaphor, and I don't think it's overly dramatic and overly sensationalist.
Thank you for that, for having come from Israel and also for understanding it and doing great film work about that, and particularly your what's the title again of the one for about the 6-Day War?
6 days.
6 days, a good title, and everything, and that's being that's not that old now. That's
no,
a couple of years.
It was in small theaters. It was on PBS, and it was around the world.
It was carried nationally, PBS.
You're right.
On what point of view or where?
No. It was actually, it was a lot of battle because of some attempts and successful censorship of different points in the PBS version.
They had to water it down?
No, I had an executive producer from PBS.
Okay.
So it ended up being 3 versions.
No kidding.
The international version, which was just 2 hours, PBS version, which was the 2 hours with some modification. I made a theatrical version out of the 2 hours international.
Okay.
And then there was an Israeli version which was simply longer. It was 3 hours.
Well, that's
the Mail and Guardian.
You were probably onto something good to have all that.
So the Mail and Guardian in Canada called it 5th take on a 6-day war.
Well, congratulations! But it was a major thing, like again compared to Battle of Algiers, which has really gotten into the icon.
I would like
status.
to think that in all the countries it played, I think it will remain because there's not too many films on 6 days, and there's the early propaganda film from the 60s.
Yeah.
So this is the first and probably for a long time the only serious kind of film looking at it and attempting to, and it's from all sides, so it's very balanced.
Congratulations on that. That's what we need, and film is the way we need to do it, and you seem to be doing it. Some of the details, right, of how somebody like yourself, you guys started at 26 out of film school, you only had infomercials to do and so on, and you build it up. How is the status for independent filmmaking in, let's say, the United States or the world now? What are the implications of the new technology? What is your thought? What about the archiving of and distribution of such documentary footage, nonfiction you'd call it, or fiction for that matter, alternative programming? What are your thoughts, having had built a career with the, and let's tick off some of the films that you have actually realized and put out there in the public, for the public view?
I think it's a very complex issue.
Yeah.
On one level, there's tremendous more opportunities than when I finished film school.
Right.
The technology, which I was just flirting at the beginning of it, with this KY2000.
Yeah.
The technology now is you can run an editing studio. And
on your laptop.
And on your laptop, a camera which costs $5,000–6,000 and has a HD high definition quality.
Yeah.
So it's under 10,000. You have a production company.
Yeah, you can be
so that is tremendous.
Okay.
There's a lot of opportunities open up in terms of network and cables, et cetera, et cetera. And here comes the criticism. I think there's still a very, much more than in the 70s, but still very limited opportunities in terms of broadcast. Yes, you can put it on Manhattan cable.
Yeah.
Yes, you can put it everywhere. But if America has a problem, I mean, if you want to get out of the margin into mainstream, because it's not just for ego, it's a question if you want ideas to be debated.
Yeah, you want your ideas to have some
effect. To be debated in the mainstream.
Yeah, to become part of the public dialogue.
It's still very tough because America is still very conservative broadcast scene politically. And
more in the broadcast of electronic media than in print?
Is there more diversity? I mean, I think PBS is a conservative institution.
You think it is?
And PBS is because of the way it's funded and the way political. So you can, the minute you're outside of funded slot, like Frontline, American Experience.
Yeah, Nova.
It's
great. They have great stuff, no doubt.
Totally.
Yeah.
The minute you're outside of that, it's much tough to get serious airtime.
Okay.
That's one thing.
Where would one get serious airtime? Could there be more venues? Can there be more venues where serious numbers could be realized? Or what do you think? You know?
I feel that it's, I mean, in that sense, it hasn't changed much.
Yeah.
I'll give an example. Jesus Politics, the film I finished.
Yeah, okay.
Which got money from ITVS. ITVS.
Britain?
No, ITVS here.
What's that?
It's basically the congressional arm to fund independent television service.
Okay, thanks.
They're basically funding independent documentaries for public television airing.
For public television
airing.
Okay, I didn't.
And it was established in, I think, early 80s as a pressure by the independent, claiming that PBS was close to independent. Program like Nova, etc., very much inside stable, in which the magnitude of voices cannot filter in.
Part of the canon. Or the Ford Foundation and the big foundations.
So ITVS was established as basically a company funded by CPB, Corporation for Public Broadcasting, with a mandate to manage grants for independent filmmakers for airing on public television.
What about the what do you call it? The Academy? No, the thing Academy of. The arts, the thing that
National Endowment for the Arts.
National Endowment.
Yeah, but it's
that's
very little.
Not relevant. Okay, or not. Okay.
So, and ITVS is very open. They funded some of the best films in the United States. They're very open stylistically. They're very open politically. They entertain a huge diversity of point of view.
Are they well financed? The grants behind them? And
well, I mean, you can get either 150,000. If some films they can even give 300,000 or 400,000.
Okay.
So it's
to green light something. Yeah.
The problem, I mean, it's a competitive.
Yeah, sure. Of course.
So it's about 1,000 proposal per cycle. Only 30 gets funded. So it's not
1,000
proposal approximately
out of which 30. That's pretty narrow.
Yeah.
That's pretty. There's probably a lot of good stuff going on in those 1,000.
Right. So what
you want to expand that if you could. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, it's the serious funding mechanism for independent filmmaking.
Okay, thank you. I didn't realize that.
So the problem with ITVS have only one slot, which is independent lens, and the rest of it they have to either try to place it on the slot or distribute it. So.
Why are the venues so few for that sort of independent, relevant documentary footage to educate the world? Why is it so narrowly set
it has to do with I mean, there's only two, these ITV, independent lens and POV.
60% is either Channel 13 or Boston or something?
No. Those are national. So POV and independent lens.
Yeah.
The problem with POV and independent lens, they're primarily a very, sort of much more author-driven documentary, which is not a problem.
Author-driven.
Meaning independent voices and personalized voices.
Okay. Do you have a personal touch to the things you do? Or and you also deal with individuals. You have individuals telling their story as a way of getting the idea across.
So this is what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
so
please.
If your style falls in between few chairs, which mean it's not personal enough, or it deals with politics from a more personal perspective, but so it's not a perfect front line because it doesn't have that aura of total balance, etc. It's not personal enough. You get stuck a little bit in between chairs. Jesus Politics, for example, a film which is very successful, got terrific review in England, France, Germany, and doing very well distribution and educational distributed here. Okay. It's distributed by PBS. Okay. By PBS, PBS has different cluster of network which distributed to the cluster of station which distributed to the rest of the network. Yeah. But the problem is, and it got, I think by now into 80 markets. Okay. But it's meaningless.
I was going to ask you also about Channel 4 and some of the things out of England, ITV and everything. Is there any hope from the European realm of the world, or even, let's say, Asia, for backing filmmaking and so on?
I survived for 25 years by marrying American money and European money.
British, largely?
British.
Yeah. Channel 4?
Yeah, Britain. This last film was funded by Britain.
Okay.
Part of the co-production was Britain. Britain have changed dramatically.
Really?
I used to get 50% of my budget out of England. Okay. The world is imitating America to a certain degree.
Under Bush?
Not America. American television.
Oh, okay.
Which means television becoming very international.
The political sense,
not political, but driven by rating, less and less room and money for serious documentaries because they fail in the rating, and that has become an international phenomenon. So I think that the marginalization of serious documentaries, it's an international phenomenon. Oh, okay. It used to be an American. It's all very international. There's very, very few places to place documentaries.
Does the political context affect things that way very much? We had Mr. Bush, now we got Obama, you had Thatcher, then you have, that kind of thing.
I don't think so.
Or it doesn't affect it?
It's market force.
It's all economics, right?
It's economics and concept of television rating and what communication should be.
Right, and the things are now, there's all kinds of changes coming, as we're all very well. The distribution, we did YouTube, we talked to you on YouTube.
No, so now the internet is going to be a fantastic...
Everything's going to be on the internet,
right, it's a fantastic phenomenon.
It's fantastic, like manna from heaven,
from
my perspective.
I know. The problem is that for people like us who makes a living at it, internet is not a solution for the time being. Yeah, okay. Which means if I get $500,000, $600,000 US dollars per documentary, there's not an internet mechanism of financing that comes even remotely close to it. So, and what's happening now that more and more television stations are trying to push it to the internet because they're trying to, and I'm exploring it too, broadcast through the internet, etc., etc. So, which is a great tool. It's just a question that the numbers are not there in terms of hits.
I just told you I got this one thing where I got 2 million hits on a television program, just talk, produced in this studio.
Yeah, but you can't get...
That's unusual.
Yeah. You can make a documentary. Yeah.
And also, it seems to me the distribution is now morphing to the cell phone. People are looking at things on their bloody cell phone. In China, we're going to end up, it seems to me, Ilan, and they're going to be able to go two-way with that. And they're going to end up with 6 billion television channels, for crying out loud. Do you see that coming?
I see that coming, and I think it's against me.
Yes.
Which means, on the surface, the rhetoric is multiplicity of voices, democracy. It's wonderful. Yeah. Prices are going down per programming.
They are. And what's coming out of the labs is growing exponentially. We're going to be swimming in bandwidth.
Right. So the idea, I mean, I see it already in Europe and in other places.
Yeah.
So more channels, fantastic. We pay less per program. The competition is bigger and bigger and bigger. So we can get away with paying less and less and less.
Pretty soon it'll get down to nothing.
So, and if you want to make a living of it,
of nothing,
you got to come up with solutions.
Well, yeah, and it's literally true that you're going to everybody in the world's going to have their own television channel.
No, but it's not so much about making a living. It's about, I mean, six days in June, which is a serious historical documentary.
Sure is. Yeah, absolutely.
That budget was about $1 million.
Okay. Okay.
The archive alone was $200,000.
Okay.
There was huge amount of research done in 5 countries.
Right.
So research, I mean, the infrastructure was pretty big.
Yeah.
There were 4 producers.
Yeah.
There were, me, working for over a year.
Yeah, yeah.
So to get all of that system, it's very difficult to make it.
Well, you look at the budgets for a Hollywood movie or something. They get up in. I remember they did this thing with Cleopatra and had 20 million or something. Everybody thought so much. Now and it all goes to stars. In the film industry, it all goes to the star.
So
that's
I don't see
William Morris negotiates and all of that.
So
now, why is it so expensive to do that? Let's say not in the realm of Hollywood, but in the realm of documentaries. $250,000 for footage, for acquisition footage or something?
It was $200,000.
Suppose you had access to that acquisition footage coming over the internet, whatever you wanted. You didn't have the blockages of property rights.
But
you had to pay rights.
I pay rights. It's not.
I know. Yeah, but what I'm saying is if you had access to all of that.
But I will never have access.
And it never will, right?
All these archive sources make a living out of selling
So everybody's
footage.
making a living out of it. So that's like a metaphor writ large, because we have to amortize the whole system that we have in place now in order for us to be able to move into a world that's offering unlimited communication capability, which is we don't have any models out of history for what is coming and what the future requires.
And
you understand what I'm saying?
Totally, and the economics.
That's it's all economics. And we don't have an economic system that's really
model for that.
We don't have. We don't have the right intellectual grounding for it, in my view, for whatever it's worth. Labor theory of value, distributing income by labor, distributing income by individuals. When the technology is becoming more, we have to get some ownership into people as a way of building capital formation and income distribution to the folks, and we don't have that even on the horizon within the political class. So we got a problem, but that's another political problem writ large.
It's all into
one sidebar on this thing about, if I may, the 6 billion people. You know how many cells there are in a human organism?
How many?
Can you, not the life cycle. I've said this, other people have heard. It's staggering. 100 trillion cells. 100 trillion. And they're all interconnected by designed DNA, and every cell matters. You understand?
Yeah.
For the thing to be system. And, if you have that model, it's dangerous, biological metaphors, but they got this idea of Gaia now, John Lovelock and that kind of thing, that you can see the Earth as like an organism. But 100 trillion cells, and they're all interconnected in every other matter. Is that a metaphor that's pushing too far in a world that allows so much inherited injustice, inappropriate, unliberating context for the operation of the human intellectual and consciousness evolution capability? Are we in a period of existential transformation in the evolution of everything on the planet that might be called for, that would have ramifications in terms of electronic communication like you're trying to do? And is it dangerous to think of an organism like the individual human organism with 100 trillion cells, all of which are interaccommodated and connected, and in a certain sense, if you use the expression, liberated in terms of what the
But what is the
metaphor?
The metaphor that we're marching
into a qualitative transformation after 200,000 years of human existence. We got weapon systems now, I think, that are now species lethal. Weapon systems. That if they're unleashed, unlike the Second World War, but against 200,000 years of our existence on this planet, we weren't anywhere near that. At the Second World War was when I was born, and now the weapon systems, if they're to be unleashed, and we have Palestine, we have Kashmir, we have Pakistan, we have all of these things, inappropriate patterns out of history. We don't have a model relevant to what the future needs in a liberated order for the whole system. We don't have that vision yet.
I'm more optimistic than you.
You are, okay.
I'm more optimistic.
I'm not necessarily pessimistic. I'm saying that's one side. The other side of the metaphor is that we have a capability that's unprecedented, maybe transcending scarcity at an ontologic level. Can you understand what I mean?
Totally.
Maybe all our institutions were predicated within a context that has qualitatively changed existentially in the universe. And we don't have leadership that can begin to move us in that direction.
But are you sure that existentially we're going to be changed so much? I mean,
well, I don't know. What do you think? You have a pregnancy, 9 months, you come to a pregnancy, and then there's a transformation. James Joyce said, history is a nightmare from which I'm attempting to awaken. Is there any chance we may be awaking? Is there a need for a massive awakening to a new way that is based upon a qualitatively altered, technologically augmented capability to provide life support and so forth for everybody, and beyond the injustices that required winners and losers and so forth, or not? Do you sense that?
I mean,
or is that not? Does that not make sense?
I never got into those philosophical levels.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Because I'm a student of history.
Okay.
And history. I mean, we jumped a lot from the Greek, and we jumped a lot from the Roman.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you read it, we're swimming in the same. Yes, technologically, we can destroy ourselves. We can destroy the planet.
Wait a minute. We can destroy the whole species.
Right.
Brand new.
Right.
Brand new.
But
Not old. Brand new.
But I don't believe, and we might do that.
That would be unfortunate. I got 4
that.
grandchildren. It would be unfortunate. It would go off as something that would happen.
We might do that, but on the other hand, I don't think that we exhibited for the last 5,000 years of recorded history suicidal
Well,
tendencies.
for the last 5,000, we haven't had the ability, we haven't been at that technological level until about 30 years ago. Something's happened along about the time of the Six-Day War. Something was going on existentially in the large sense.
But just to keep this philosophical discussion going and not
Maybe
further.
we shouldn't. We should go back into all the nuts and bolts of the documentary.
No, because I feel that, we had the nuclear technology, which could annihilate the planet during the Cold War between the Soviet Union.
Not until about 1970, most of the modeling says, did it become speciesly. There have been a couple of survivors
but we
in the beginning.
But we haven't used it.
That's true.
And we haven't used it.
Thank goodness.
There's Pakistan and India nuclear armed. They haven't used it. Not only that they haven't used it, it's succeeded to cool the desire to have conventional
it's a
war.
mad, mutually assured destruction.
Right. So what I'm saying is, if you look at it in a less paranoid way, the technology is there, but somehow we haven't exhibited a species huge suicidal trend. Maybe one tribe did through genocide, but the planet or the totality, the 6 billion human beings on this planet,
6 heading for 10 if we
don't
blow it up,
have not exhibited collective suicide tendency.
Okay, not only life and death, that kind of thing. In Joyce, history is a nightmare of injustice. Right? So maybe on the we have an equally significant ability, if we get our act together, to provide for everybody in a way that is totally unprecedented. You don't have to have all the injustice, people starving when we know we can feed, that kind of thing. We have a way of doing that, but we don't have systems because we're all amortizing the old systems out of which we're coming, and we don't have systems relevant to a situation of sufficiency or even abundance for everybody and all the creatures and so forth. A liberating moment in the evolution of universal consciousness, and our leadership, our intellectual leadership, falling down on the job. They're not providing an alternative. That's the premise. That's the positive side. But as off on another track, maybe. But back to the filmmaking. You brought in a couple of films, no?
No, I brought this trailer.
Okay, trailer. That's what I meant.
For the Jesus Politics film,
right?
Which was about the election, religion and election in American politics.
Yeah.
I mean, following the last primary campaign.
Yeah.
And I brought a trailer of a film called In the Name of the Victim. We might want to talk about it now or later.
Well, okay, let's talk a little bit, because it do with a lot of problems with the victims of the Holocaust are being ill-treated by people who are taking advantage of them.
It's basically explored the multitude of organizations that emerge, speaking in the name of the victim, raising money in the name of the victim, suing, Swiss bank or German government in the name of the victim, and how that funds are being distributed, and I would call it in a horrible, unfair title a little bit, commercialization of the Holocaust.
Right.
I mean, sort of trying to find monetary terms to use.
Sort of a Madoff ripoff by a lot of people, people who are deserving.
I mean, there's a lot of points of view. I mean, I'm a bit more in the middle. Radicals will talk about
Madoff.
The industry, the Holocaust industry.
Yeah, right.
I wouldn't use that term because it suggests an organized cabal of people ripping off. I think it's a much more complicated than that.
Yeah, right.
But the end result is that the Jewish community at large failed to support Holocaust victim, in my opinion. And I think it has to do with the skewed emphasis. There's billions, millions, and to some extent billions, went to the memorialization of the Holocaust rather than into the survivors.
Yeah, to really helping the people who deserve it. That's a large seam.
It's a big issue.
Yeah, people of economic or political power have roundly and regularly taken advantage of the least advantaged of people who can do that, and so it's a cry and it's an examination of a system that could use a sense of what do you call it? Transparency, and also a movement toward a real just order.
Transparency, and because the system is based upon lack of transparency, which allowed it to happen.
The system writ large is.
Not the system, that particular system. This Jewish organization. And they're also profoundly undemocratic and unelected. So you have unelected officials speaking in the name of, which we refuse to accept in any other part of society. And so you have organization which was formed immediately after the war and represent a state of mind of Stalin was alive. There was a lot of other models. And they never really reformed over the decades. So because of that, when the era of reparation came in the 90s, the reparation for Jewish properties, which came in the 90s with the Swiss bank and real estate in Eastern Germany. Suddenly there was organization that was structured in 1947 representing the victims without having any mechanism of modernization and representation. Therefore you had this skewed
skewed by the powerful to take advantage, and the people who have been, think of the American Indian peoples, how we violated every treaty we had against them and so forth. I don't think we've ever given them proper repercussions for people who are powerful overcome or conquer someone else, then they do not have an adjust. How do those two factors adjust within an economic political order?
I don't think that you have dealing here with corrupt individuals.
No, it's a system. It's systemic.
Or even a system which is corrupt in order to gain personal benefit and reach itself. I mean, there's few corrupt individuals that have been taken care of. I think it's a much more, I know better what's for you, or a bunch of organizations will decide what's good for the rest.
Which a lot of the world is set up that way. We had kings in Europe, we had emperors in Rome, we had pharaohs in Egypt, and we had international bankers now who set a template that don't allow the filmmaking community nearly enough to be able to express itself in the important educational role that it has to provide. And you got a couple of trailers, and we'll just say it only runs the whole thing about 4 minutes, I guess. And you got a little, about a 10-second break of black in between. So we're going to run them both together. And we're talking with Ilan Ziv, filmmaker extraordinaire. Believe me, go to his site and you'll see the work that he's been doing over a long and distinguished career. And really happy to be able to run that trailer now with a couple of pieces from his gigantic oeuvre of really important information that should be distributed as widely as possible. So could we run that tape now then, please? Thank you.
We're running?
Yeah.
Good.
To me, it's pretty simple. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Do you think that God takes sides in a war? For example, is God on the side of U.S. troops, would you say? Please come, those that are
supporting Senator Obama, because I do believe he's the Cyrus, that God has anointed him.
You know, there's a battle out there. There's a spiritual war out there.
Political leaders, politicians, don't change the world. A revival can change the world.
We're watching America become a theocracy. I don't care what religion you're talking about. I do not want to live in a theocracy.
If you look at the world through a historic perspective, if you don't see a climax, if you don't see something coming to a head, I think you're burying your head in the sand.
בוקר אחד גיליתי שאני חלק מאיזה תהליך של החזרת רכוש. מהר מאוד הבנתי שאתה בסך הכל עוד מקרה.
The claims conference became a snake. If you didn't fight them, they would eat you up alive.
הם מבקשים עוד כספים בשביל ניצולי שואה. בשביל מה הם ייתנו את הכספים? שיגנבו אותם? שהגרמנים ישלמו לאנשים האלה ישירות, אז לפחות האנשים האלה יקבלו את הכסף.
ניצולי השואה שתקו, סבלו. הם כבר לא שותקים. הם כבר לא שותקים, והם לא ישתקו.
אתה נמצא תוך קורי עכביש, שהעכביש אפילו לא מסביר לך מה החוקים של המשחק.
Over half a century ago, the largest ever campaign for reclaiming stolen property was launched on behalf of the 6 million Jews killed by the Nazis, in an attempt to make amends for one of the greatest crimes of modern history. Today, some survivors of that great tragedy, as well as their children, have been forced into a conflict with the very organization that was supposed to obtain justice in their name.
Beautiful, beautiful work. That's beautiful editing and everything. Congratulations enormously. And we're going to touch the surface. We want to let people know. Could we go a little into the things? How many films have you completed? Lay it out for us a little bit here in terms of.
I don't remember, to be honest.
Well, roughly though. I mean, you're very busy.
I've been doing it since 1920. 25 years. I've been doing about a film or two a year.
Film or two, that's a lot. That's 50 films, maybe. Huh?
So that's maybe a bit less, but that's more or less.
It takes about a half a year for you to put a thing
together? No,
it's
really,
on the average, it varies.
It depends. I mean, it's usually a year, but in the year you start something, the new one, so you know.
Right. And
I mean, 6 Days was finished 2 years ago, and then 6 Days and In the Name of the Victim.
Yeah.
In the Name of the Victim, and then 6 Days began, and 6 Days, you know, I think it was released. Is it possible? June 27.
Okay.
2007. And then I started working on, in the winter I started to work on the Jesus Politics.
Okay.
Last year was Jesus Politics.
Okay. How does it happen with you? Does it start with an idea in the shower? Does it start with a contact at a funding agency? Do you have to think about the funding first? Do you have to think about the distribution ahead of time? Do you have to put it? How does it happen that a film is realized in terms of you being the executive
I've been
producer?
very, very, I think, privileged in the sense that I really do what I want. I come up with the ideas. And I'm trying to convince you as the broadcaster that it's a great idea.
Great.
And I've been successfully convincing several broadcasters for each film
Very good.
that it's a very good idea. And there's a track record, so they trust you.
Yeah, right.
And the ideas needs to be original and thoughtful. But I've been very lucky because 8% of the stuff that I've been doing has been generated first by me, B, by issues that I care about. I mean,
Middle East, a lot in the Middle East, yeah.
Middle East or others, but issues that I care about.
You think it's a really good idea? You said, I'm really lucky because I'm doing exactly what I want to. Think it's possible to have a world where everybody's doing exactly what they want to rather than what some system tells them they have to do to have bread to eat?
No, but I've been operating outside. Yeah, but I've been operating outside of every system.
Is that too idealistic?
I think it might be too idealistic.
It might be too idealistic. Yeah, right. It would be just good if one of the things about music, if everybody's playing, it's non-zero sum. If you're playing a trumpet and you're in an orchestra, you want the timpani to play and the tuba. Right. You want everybody to play, you know. It would be good in a way back to that metaphor about human system of 100 trillion cells.
The cells connected.
Yeah, that kind
with
of
one DNA.
A liberation, it would be that kind of stuff. But it's wonderful you've been able to do that. So the ideas come to you. You have your own idea. Then where do you go first outside of, let's say, you put something on an envelope or on a piece of paper?
No, I basically...
How does it actually happen
once
for
I
the
have
people who might be watching and wanting to
Once I have the idea, I put it in a page. I have already in mind few broadcasters who are interested in my work, interested in idea. I mean, the ideas come not because I just desperately looking for ideas.
No, I know there's so many,
They come out of, you know, personal obsession, issues of concern, something that I read in the newspaper that triggered me.
Do you have any thought about acquisition footage? You have acquisition too immediately, and that
no, I don't.
Things in the can or something. You don't think that way. Okay, right. Okay.
So, and then I put something in writing, and then there's a whole mechanism of, you know, few markets a year that you network with people, and now. And I fire off a few emails. I get my first no's. I get depressed for 24 hours, and I continue. And then I eventually, I mean, because I'm not working for, nobody calls me. You know, I have to. Nobody calls me. Said, "Why? I want you to make a film, Ilan," because it doesn't work like this. Because I don't work for a particular slot. I mean, if you are part of a stable, let's say, I did American Experience, but I'm not part of the American Experience stable.
Okay,
so
that's interesting. That's the way the world's set up.
So in the stable, there's few producers which do the program within the style of the slot. And American television is more from
sort of like
formula than in Europe. So, and I'm not doing formula film, meaning they're not a little bit edgy here or edgy there.
I understand.
Either by politics or by style.
Right.
So because of that, I don't work for a particular formula.
Right. You're not like an MGA studio.
I'm out of the cookie cutters. So if I'm out of the cookie cutters, then nobody calls me. I have to call people to give me money. Nobody says, Ilan, how about doing a film and that.
But you have a good track record in that realm. And that realm could be expanded. Others, you're in touch with others like yourself who are serious independent documentary filmmakers. Danny Schechter, you know Danny?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, Danny and that kind of stuff. There are people, that's really an important group of people that can put those things together. It's very
because we are so independent, we're very much alone. So there's no coalition. There's no network of independent.
There's no association of independent good documentary.
No, there is association, but we all sort of scaring around doing our own thing.
Yeah, and it's all going. And then you pitch it. Then you'd have to pitch it.
And then I pitch it, and then I pitch it.
Where do you go to pitch it? I mean, where do you go?
Again, because
there's a few of these things.
Because my funding is always diverse.
Okay.
And I'm very well connected in Europe and in Israel. And Canada. So I'm pitching in those. So the U.S. is usually, that's the reason why I survive for so long, to the ability of making a film every year.
Yeah, that's a lot. Two, you said maybe two.
Maybe two.
Yeah.
So I survived because U.S., I couldn't do it if I was relying on the U.S. alone. Because I would be raising funds for foundation, which would taken me 2-3 years to finish a film.
That's sort of sclerotic, slow, that system?
I would say if you make films in the U.S. only, on American issues only, you make a film once every 4 years.
Oh, really? Okay, that's not good. There should be more of that. And we're moving toward a European model here, a lot of people think. Is there better support for that kind of thing coming out of Europe?
Still more. There will never be the same support in the U.S.
Okay, because it's larger economy.
Not only that, it's also these issues which doesn't exist in the U.S. of protecting local culture. which means you can get money you can get huge amount of money in Canada if you work through a Canadian production company, National Film Board.
Film Board is great.
Because they feel on the onslaught by American culture. So to defend our Canadian heritage. As an Israeli, I can get money out of Israel because there's mechanism to support Israeli production.
Yeah.
So
and that's politically geared, or
not politically in the sense of politics, but only in terms of culture and politics.
Oh, culture, okay.
Cultural politics.
Right.
We want to support Israeli.
Yeah.
So as a former Israeli, I can get money out of Israel. So I'm diversified.
Okay.
So the U.S. is usually either no money at all, or 25–30% of the budget. So, I mean,
that's a start.
No, that's the films. So I can make films which have no American money.
Oh, I see.
And have money coming from overseas.
So
I'm very international.
Well, that's good. The world's going global. You're going along with it.
I've been global for the last 20 years.
Well, congratulations on that. I think you're ahead of the curve.
I'm really ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and you have a general progressive, optimistic view of things. It would seem to me, and you would count yourself in a certain sense of progressive.
I'm a very pessimistic and very worried about the world as you are, but moderated by my reading of history.
Well, you're moderated by your reading of history.
My reading
of history. It makes you more optimistic by reading history?
Optimistic, not in a sense that I don't see only the apocalypse around the corner. I see the potential for the apocalypse every few years, but we succeed somehow to avoid it.
Let's hope. Yeah. But this other thing, this shining thing about how we may be coming to a real qualitative I think that's there now, perhaps before us.
But I'm also more pessimistic about idealistic.
You're right.
I'm very cynical. So as a cynical, I'm not as apocalyptic as I should be, and I'm not as idealistic as I should be.
Well, I ask you, Ilan, stay as wonderful as you are, because you've done wonderful work, a great contribution to the oeuvre of intellectually relevant, educationally significant material, and I congratulate you enormously on it.
Thank you.
And thank you for the tips about the election that will have been yesterday from this program airs. And keep up the good work, and let's by all means stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me. Keep you attuned to the idea of this public access realm and the unique financing of that and the possibilities. We could go on talking for hours and hours about a number of things. We can go into the technology, Final Cut Pro versus Avid. You do all editing on
Final Cut Pro.
It's all. Did you ever do film, Steenbeck, and that kind of stuff?
No, because when I was one of the first to start with video.
You started right in with video.
With this KY 2000. And
yeah, and that was
78. I was the first one to play, 79 to play around with this low level. Not the first, but to do only documentaries on video. I mean, there were a bunch of us.
Yeah.
But I was not the only one. In Europe, I was one of the first.
You don't remember this, the Porta pack?
Yes, of course.
You do remember?
Yeah.
I got the use of about the 5th Porta pack what came off the boat from Japan.
Film school.
Yeah, and George Stoney helped set you on that course. Well, congratulations. You're in good company with George. And that realm that you're in is the realm of really important people on our planet that ought to be given a whole lot more support and their work be able to be realized more easily and distributed more widely, I would submit. So keep up all the good work.
Thank you.
Okay.